Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar for today. This is a 30-minute webinar about reimagining field service. Specifically, in this case, with remote visual guidance. We have two experts that are going to be talking to us today. This is also the first in a series of webinars. Our next one is going to be May 8th, and everybody who's attending today will also receive an invitation to that one through email. So there's one thing that I'd like to bring your attention to as far as the user interface here. There's a Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen that if you use that during the session here, we'll ask, or we'll put these questions out there that you have asked. We'll share them with the commentators, and then hopefully we'll have an opportunity to answer all of your questions as we move through. So we are going to be diligent to keep this to 30 minutes. And with that, I want to introduce our speakers. We first have Michael Blumberg with Blumberg Advisory and Edward Krizik, both experts in the field service space. And so I'm going to hand it off now to Edward Krizik.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, it's a real honor to share the stage, if you will, with Michael Blumberg, who is very well versed and an expert in field service. And what's interesting is that in Michael's portfolio, he covers pretty much every vertical market, every service delivery methodology, and is well respected. But Michael, to sort of kick off the conversation around reimagining field service and service delivery, in your opinion, what are some of the most critical challenges currently facing the environment today?
First of all, Edward, thank you for your kind words in that introduction. To answer your question, there's several critical challenges that we're seeing. Is one, been a shortage of skilled labor that's been going on for a couple of years. Right now, with the tariffs and the economy, there's a lot of uncertainty. Do we invest? Do we scale back? What do we do here? Even if we can find skilled labor, is now the right time to hire them? We've got challenges with our supply chain constraints. Tariffs are going to may increase the cost and the price of spares. Customer expectations are increasing. They want faster service. They want it now. They want predictability. They want proactive service. They want, in many cases, preemptive service. So all those are converging on service, making it more complex, higher pressure environment to be operating in.
Yeah, interesting. So going back to something that you said originally around the hiring and getting the skilled labor, one of the things that we see a lot in our space is we wrote a paper a few years ago called the Silver Tsunami, and that is this challenge of an aging workforce that is at or near retirement age. And then you've got an emerging workforce. I think that gap in between sort of illustrates the importance of having a quick process for recruiting, a quick process for onboarding, and then making sure that new employee is up to speed. And we typically at Help Lightning measure time to competency. So one of the things that we've always focused on is using this technology, remote visual guidance, to recruit the right technician, because there's a lot you can do remotely that you don't have to wait for office time or scheduling constraints. You bring that person in via a call, similar to this with the Help Lightning functionality, and now you're driving that time to decision, that time to hiring decision faster. And then from there, you've got the time to onboarding, and most importantly, that time to competency being supported by, a well thought out digital transformation. But yeah, that's really key. And you mentioned some of the global challenges. I think this is where, and I'll stress the importance of the strategic partnership that will then present what those challenges are to their business partners and customers and clients with a plan, right? So we know that the tariffs are going to create some level of uncertainty. How do you overcome that through reducing the cost per activity, driving new revenue streams, making sure that all of the positions are filled and that the people are out there, driving a very high level of performance?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I want to add another challenge that's also solved through this remote digital guidance technology, and that's that some field service organizations are trying to solve these challenges through automation and using AI to access data. However, the data is very fragmented, it's siloed, and it also doesn't overcome the challenges that sometimes you really need to look at something and guide somebody visually how to resolve it. So the AI only goes so far, but again, the major challenge is The data is distributed and fragmented and siloed. So this technology allows an expert to very quickly provide guidance to a worker in the field.
Absolutely. While retaining, the constraints around confidentiality and that
100%.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Awesome. We go to the next question, Kevin. All right, Michael, how do you see digital transformation reshaping the field service industry?
It's making field service more agile and flexible. If there's an issue, you can address it immediately by, as long as you have somebody who's seen this before or is smart enough to try to resolve it, they can help you. The other thing it's doing, which is helping in all industries with digital transformation, is streamlining and automating processes, facilitating innovation, and creating new business models, which in some cases can be monetized. And we're seeing
Yeah.
that with remote visual guidance as well.
Yeah, that's great. One thing that I would mention on that is it's always good to have an enterprise driven strategy, right? So when I think of remote visual guidance, and I think of specifically the way we approach the market at Help Lightning, is that though field service is a very engaging and certainly active business unit that we work with across all vertical markets, but it really does have applicability in each of the different business units. So going back to the previous question around making sure that you've got the right people at the right time, using it for recruiting and onboarding and training. So that's a different team. That's a team that supports field service. They have a dependency on field service, but they can really drive the field service performance by making sure that the recruiting and training efforts are done quickly, efficiently, and successfully, so then they can drive the NPS out in the field. I think that's an element. And then I think of it like, maybe sales and marketing, using the technology for hardware demos or product demos, working with digital marketing influencers to make sure everyone's on the same page. So there's a lot of value. But in my opinion, when I think of digital transformation, it should never be done by department. It should be done as an enterprise. And if you can have one frictionless tool that can sort of transcend each of those, it just seems to me that at the end of the day, you're going to get a clear message. You're going to get more motivation from the team, especially if it could be branded or customized for that, specific company.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's digital transformation is creating more inter and intra enterprise collaboration. It's breaking down silos. It's creating new ecosystems that never existed before. And
Yep.
to your point, you could use this an event that may have occurred on the manufacturing floor where you're using remote visual guidance to inspect something and use that knowledge later down in the supply chain, service supply chain, or more aptly described the service life cycle to improve something in downstream process and vice versa. Utilizing what you've learned downstream in the service back upstream so when you're redesigning a new product or service.
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges, though, is that, we've heard of digital transformation for years, right? And I think every company and most leaders might have a little bit different perception or definition of what that is. But the way I look at it in today's market, where technology and innovation changes so rapidly, that it really does require that visionary leader, right? The leader that says we don't need to spend a lot of time in a pilot. We get the solution, we get how it's going to drive the right metrics, how it's going to increase market share, reduce cost, improve NPS. And it's almost that fail fast sort of attitude, right?
Mhm.
The more time you spend analyzing it, probably the less time you're gonna be able to celebrate the successful results. So I think that visionary leader is always a
100%.
dependency and
Yeah.
certainly something to focus on. Awesome. All right, Kevin, you can go to the next one. All right. So when we talk about reimagining service, what does transformation look like from your perspective? And I think of this, Michael, with your background, your skill in writing position papers and articulating messages. So think of it across all verticals, all businesses. What are some of those common threads that you see?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So reimagining service is recognizing that everything we do is a service and everything we do requires some sort of visual inspection visual observation, and applying that along with the technology to streamline and automate processes, preempt activities from occurring, reduce, and by preempting, you're eliminating costs, you're reducing time, you're resolving things quicker. But it's also creating new business models, where you can offer remote visual guides as a service and charge for that. It also, as I alluded to before, it could involve that you're manufacturing a product and you're using remote visual guidance to inspect the products that come out, understand the design and BOM and structure, bill materials, and then using that visual observation as in the remote visual guidance solution, so that later down in the service lifecycle, you can access that knowledge to fix a problem, or because you've done a great job in using remote visual guidance to offer a solution to a customer to configure the equipment properly at the customer site, to anticipate what kind of connectivity you might need at that site, that enables you to preempt and avoid service issues that may occur otherwise. For example, when the technician goes to install, they realize it's the wrong configuration. The way this is configured, it doesn't meet the customer's requirements. It can't fit in the space you've given it. It doesn't connect. It's missing certain attachments, certain connections, certain interfaces. And that's what we mean by reimagining service. Looking at how you can provide remote visual guidance throughout the life cycle. And one other thing, and I know it's a lot to cover here, and I will cover it in future webinars, and that's the ability to create centers of excellence. So it's not just this, an event occurs, a transaction occurs, that event ends, and further down the road, another event occurs, and there's no linkages. And while the knowledge might exist within the organization, it's hard to get to. But with a center of excellence, you can create these kind of virtual centers where experts are available remotely to access remote visual guidance and provide the support and guidance required to resolve or preempt or predictively resolve an issue.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Our strategy around that, so we define that as a dynamic center of excellence. And the idea is that you could take resources that are in the field today, they're certified, identified as experts on particular pieces of equipment or installations or what have you. You can tag them as being available. So they might be in between calls, and now they become part of the dynamic center of excellence team that can support someone in the field. And all they really need is, their communication device, a phone, iPad, computer, what have you. And now they might be sitting at home, they might be in a parking lot, but they're helping somebody get through a service call or an installation call. That value to that is really important for organizations to understand, because you're not adding any cost to it. You're utilizing a resource today. You're focusing on the utilization rate, and whatever your percentage of utilization rate target is, you don't need to impact that by hiring additional people to wait around for a call. You're using people that are, already on the clock, if you will.
Exactly, increase utilization.
Yeah, that's a really good strategy. The other thing that I would say is the self-help aspect of RVG, remote visual guidance, right? So we have a more technologically sound and experienced customer base in today's day and age than we did in the past. And I think a lot of people are looking for the self-help. Like, I get we have a service call, I still want you to come out, but how do I fix this right now? Whether it be in an error code or something that I can do just to keep this machine up and running, maybe impact some downtime. So I think by using this technology and putting in experts, so from the dynamic COE with the hands-in technology and all the other features, by connecting that resource with a customer, I think that you're going to drive the self-help. And Michael, I noticed on your LinkedIn, you had promoted a paper on right to repair, and that is really significant. I would encourage everyone on this call to do your due diligence on right to repair, what it means for your company and your customers, and then develop a strategy where when they call in for a warranty, a repair, what have you, that you're equipped to solve that quickly. I think that's going to be a big differentiator. It's going to get a lot more focus here in the coming months for sure.
Agreed.
Great. Okay. Can you describe a scenario in a service operation where a remote expert has changed the outcome?
Yeah, this was a scenario that was described to me where there was an organization, a field service organization, where they were dispatching. They had an incident where they dispatched a technician to troubleshoot and resolve an issue that they hadn't seen before. The problem was that this issue kept coming up over and over again, even though they were doing a great job in guiding the technician how to solve it, and they were curating that knowledge and making it available to other technicians. The support team at first thought it was just kind of an intermittent issue, maybe a spare part or something. But through remote visual guidance, they could see everything the technician was doing and every aspect of the machine that he was touching. And as a result, the technical support center realized that the issue was the way that the machine was designed. It wasn't really effectively designed for serviceability. There were some issues that the way the spare part was installed, it would lead towards an intermittent error occurring. And they would have not seen that without having that remote visual guidance capability.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I'll offer an anecdote that we've talked about quite a bit at Help Lightning, but we had a customer who knew in the engagement with Help Lightning and pretty excited about it, but they had a customer in a different state, so say 4 or 5 hour drive, and they had a unit that's a revenue generating unit. So for the customer, this was critically important that they have no downtime. And after several calls, a couple of service calls, they were able to connect over the phone with an expert, and the expert said, "Okay, I can be there, later today. It's a bit of a drive for me." And their customer said, "Hey, if it's going to take that long, don't bother. Just pick it up and we'll go somewhere else." And they were then able to connect via Help Lightning at that moment of impact, which is critically important. And this expert was able to identify the problem. Their customer, that end user, was able to fix it right there. It was like a very simple fix that only this expert knew about. And it ended up being a successful conclusion. They were able to take a negative and turn it into a super positive. But the comment back from the expert to us, unsolicited, is we were able to save a customer. We were able to, complete this task, and I didn't even have to put on shoes. Now, I know it's a funny way to describe that, but that is certainly one of the values of what we're doing here at Help Lightning. So excellent. Very good. I know we're almost at 20 minutes after. So Kevin, you can go to the next slide if that's okay. So Michael, what is an aha moment or breakthrough that convinced you that RVG truly is the future of field service?
I don't think there's a day goes by they don't have an aha moment or breakthrough about a remote visual guidance. In particularly working with you and your team, Edward, just learning and observing all the advancements you've been making with this technology. But I think it all kind of comes down to that it's an enterprise solution. It's not just the one use case that you can use remote visual guidance for. It's not over the shoulder guidance. This is how the technology was originally introduced. As somebody has a problem, it's by exception, call a remote expert for support. We're seeing it as enterprise, and in that enterprise approach also involves dynamic centers of excellence, and also enterprise involves that you can use this technology from even before you sell a product to make sure you're manufacturing the equipment so it avoids breakdowns, it avoids service events, that when you're selling the equipment, you can identify the configuration, the installation requirements of the customer, and the additional attachments or connections that are required. Then when it's installed, making sure it's installed properly and using remote visual guidance to go through the installation process, then giving the customer access to self-support. If self-support is enough, you can access the dynamic center of excellence to provide various levels of support, ranging from level 2 to level 3 to level 4, or how many levels you have in an organization as that knowledge gets deeper and deeper and more specific. And then taking that knowledge to then almost a closed loop to design a better product. And by taking that enterprise approach and implementing a remote visual guidance, throughout the enterprise and beginning at manufacturing and then taking it even to that sales step, you're reducing the potential for failures along the way. And the further upstream, further you get this to upstream processes, the more likely you are to have a higher performance when it comes to first time fix rates and even not even having the need for repairs at all.
Yeah, and it drives a culture of innovation, which is really
Yes.
strong. So for me, I'm sort of the same way. Like in my career, I've had a lot of aha moments around this. Previous to my time at Help Lightning, I was a customer of Help Lightning. And I saw sort of my first aha moments was around using this technology to centralize different data points and visuals and information to have a company go from here's our traditional line of business, and now we can expand the line of business using the same resources. So really the only difference is we're going to include Help Lightning as part of that work stream. And now we can go drive revenue that we didn't have before. I think that market share gain is really fantastic. And then I look at it as each individual market or vertical market has a different approach. For instance, in an aha moment we had a couple of weeks ago, we were doing a traditional QBR with a customer. We're presenting our metrics. And by the way, our metrics are elegant, sophisticated in a dashboard. So every time I look at a customer dashboard is a new aha moment, whether it's sustainability, expense, revenue, market share, what have you. But this customer, after we delivered, here are the metrics in a very formal setting, we were then presented back, here's the overall financial gain. And we know that we're a 10x plus delivery model, but what we heard back in such an enthusiastic way was another aha moment that, we're doing the right things for the customers and have developed a product and if you think of our origin story, it begins with developing this technology to assist people during brain surgery to everything else that we're doing it's fun to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, I want to underscore something you said earlier, Edward, and that was that this technology not only improves the service experience and improves the productivity by improving the productivity, efficiency, and quality of that experience, but also improves the product experience. And as a result, the OEMs who are using this technology not only increase service revenues because service is there and you could make commitments that you normally could not have made before. So you can provide SLAs and a higher level of service and charge a premium for it. But you're also going to sell more product because you're having such a great experience. It's going to pull through to sell more and more product because of that experience.
Yeah. So one thing I didn't even think that we'd be talking about today, but think of the research and development process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have instances where we've enabled this technology in that process, incorporating all the different internal modalities of a business, and they've had time to launch measured much faster than the traditional setting of today we're going to meet with engineering and then tomorrow marketing and now sales and operations and all that. By incorporating this very collaborative technology, we've had companies go from 18 months to 1 year, and that additional 6 months, that's just leaving money on the table. So
yeah, it's really breaking down barriers and
yeah, absolutely.
Friction from the process.
So the last formal question, excuse me, we have is, what are the key factors to consider when deciding to adopt a new digital tool for field service?
Yeah, great question. So we're talking about remote visual guidance, obviously. So let's focus on that in context. One is to accept that we've got some challenges that we need to resolve. Okay, and recognize the value of remote visual guidance. That some of the things you just can't do by searching databases with AI only. You got to see it. You got to visually see it and look at it and to diagnose it. And you also want to see the repair process, the process of how to resolve it. So that's second thing. The third thing is you need to think strategically how this can be deployed in the enterprise. It's not just one use case. It's how many use cases can I solve? Can I support through this? And tying back this strategy is one way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is, so I just talked about a strategic vision, multiple use cases, and you got to find the right vendor who has that enterprise view of this technology, can think strategically, can help you leverage and access and maximize the rich feature functionality that's in a remote visual guidance solution like Help Lightning. technologies like how AI is improving the remote visual guidance process. What impact guided curated knowledge has for you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
and we have a buyer's guide that goes in a lot more detail about what to look for.
Yeah.
Seems
And
like-
by the way, for all of our participants, we have a code for that. So let us know. This is Michael and his team wrote this. It is absolutely fantastic, and we'll give you some great industry insights, some help lighting insight, but very good information there. But going back to those sort of dependencies, I would say where we feel like we've got these game-changing um, opportunities with clients, it really comes down to leadership, right? Like they get the vision and they're gonna make sure that they're sharing what that vision is with us so we can understand what their culture is, what is driving the alignment, what their overall goals are, and then, certainly promoting it and giving us access to the right people at the right time. So yeah, that's great. Kevin, you can go to the next slide. Excellent. And here's just a little bit of information about our organizations. If you are lucky enough to be in Palm Springs next week, we'll be at booth 209. Michael will be there with his organization. I'll be in the booth. So stop by, introduce yourself, and get a demo. This really great technology. And then we also are, and I guess today is the first official launch, but Help Lightning is beginning a new program called Veterans in Field Service. So if you're a veteran, go to our website, register, you'll get a welcome package. But the idea is through the veteran community and field service, which is a very large part of the population, we want to drive networking amongst us as field service leaders to make sure that we can promote the right hiring, so we can share some success stories around hiring military, um, making sure that we're communicating different resources that we have for that, as well as veteran outreach. I think most organizations support veteran outreach, whether it's Wounded Warrior Project or Tunnels to Towers. So we want to make sure that we can network around that, share some best practices, and really drive that to impact our veteran community. So again, if you're a veteran or if you know veterans in your organization, send them to our website, register, and it's a really cool welcome package. And then we're going to have some discussions around this next week at the event, but we're also going to be hosting more formal events where we'll have guest speakers, we'll have some really great and interesting networking opportunities. So with that, thank you everyone for joining today. We'll have this posted as a recording so you can send it off through your team. And thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.